boom, I'm going to put the ugly guy with the gray beard right next to you. Bam. And then we can get rocking and rolling. How are you?
Good morning. I'm fantastic. How are you?
And so good. Thanks for coming in. Thanks for hanging
Thank
out.
you. We've been talking about doing this for months,
Yes, ma'am.
and I am grateful for your patience and grateful for the invitation. Thank you.
You've had one or two things going on, You've had a
Here and
couple,
there.
yeah, here and there. You've had a couple things going on, man, but it's been cool. I got to chat with your sister. Got to
I
meet.
heard.
She's going to be coming in this Saturday too. We're going to be talking with the school affiliates, which is really cool. She's doing some amazing things too, and
Yeah.
so it's fun. And then you just keep coming up in conversation, anyways. You keep coming up in conversations with Tim. And you got to work. Did you just work out with Tim at SHOT Show?
Yeah, I know he did like 4 or 5 mornings in a row
Yeah,
of different workouts, and so I was able to join him for one of them. And it was my husband and I went to SHOT Show for the first time. And I asked before going, I asked Jack Carr's advice because I've heard
yeah.
SHOT Show is just like can be overwhelming and a madhouse. And so he gave me some good advice. He's like, go and get a day out on the range and then go. And he said, one day at SHOT Show will probably like max you out. And so that's what we did. We had a blast and we both crashed on the plane as we left.
I have no doubt. I have no doubt. That's awesome
It was
though.
fantastic. It was an awesome experience. Met so many incredible
Mhm.
people. And yeah, it was amazing. And the workout we did with Tim and the community of people from all over the country that were gathered there was really powerful.
Very cool. Just some really good humans out there. They're really good.
Amazing.
It's always disgusting to work out with Tim. I actually hate it. But I was glad to see that you got out there. And then
Yeah, it's great.
and it was right after that too. I had conversation. It was like Bart Kwan, Satema, Brian
Hmm.
Callen, but the serious version of Brian Callen. Like your name came
Yeah.
up in all of these conversations too, man. It's just you are loved and admired by good humans because you are a good human too. So no, really honored, and really glad to get to hang with you.
Likewise.
I want to talk about the book. That's one of the things you've been working on.
Yes.
And that's so before we even get into the content of the book, how are you feeling on the process of it? I know it's not your first rodeo, but man, that is a process.
It's my first book rodeo,
Yeah.
and it's a whole thing,
Yeah.
man. For anybody who's here on the call who's thinking about writing a book, maybe you already have, and you know what I'm talking about. I'm not one of these people who's just like a prolific writer. There was a former member of Congress who he published his first book while he was in Congress, and I was like, man, how do you find the time? He's like, oh, I write it on my phone when I'm flying back and forth to my district. And having just literally before we got on the call, I just got from the publisher the typeset PDF manuscript of my book that's getting ready to go to print the day after tomorrow. So I'm going to give it a final proofread. But yeah, a lot of energy, time, and heart went into writing this book. It's been a long time coming. I missed so many deadlines, I'm embarrassed to say, but it's done. And I'm really looking forward to getting my words and my thoughts and feelings out in the country at a time that is incredibly critical. And
Mm.
I'll just speak briefly on this. The book is called For Love of Country, Leave the Democrat Party Behind. And I was in Iowa on Saturday, had the chance to speak to different county conventions for the Republican Party and also to the Iowa Libertarian Party.
Mm.
And it was interesting. I mentioned what I just kind of shared with you. And I had so many people coming up to me and being like, man, I have a sister or a coworker or best friend or a child who doesn't yet see what's going on in our country, and they're not convinced about the dangers that
Mhm.
today's Democrat Party, I was a Democrat for over 20 years, the dangers that today's Democrat Party and the Democrat elite pose to our liberty and this democratic republic. So like, I got to buy a book for my wife, or I got to buy a book for my best friend,
Yes.
just so they can it's not a memoir by any means. It's a book that's very issue focused, but I share a lot of the experiences that I've had, and the things that I've learned along the way, in the hopes that others can also be introspective in their decision making as we head towards this pivotal election.
So grateful. I'm grateful for you speaking out around that and bringing context to those conversations. We had a couple of years ago, I had the opportunity to host Jo Jorgensen, and she was running as a libertarian candidate, and she asked to do her Northern California tour at one of the campuses I created in California. And so we got to host her there, and we had a dinner afterwards. And one of the people who was at the dinner is the largest donor in the country to the Libertarian Party. And so we were sitting down and we're having dinner afterwards. And he brought up the topics that we're now seeing in full force that you're speaking very much to, around how the Democratic Party has been handling these things for many years. And he asked, do you want to be more forceful at pointing towards that? And the way she was just kind of laissez, and again, Jo was great, but the way she was laissez-faire answering those questions too, it was like, man, I know there was a few people at that dinner that came out and said, man, I wish she would just come out and speak to exactly what she's seeing and what she's going on. So I appreciate that you are. So
thank you.
Is there hope to bring rational thought and civil discourse back to the Democratic Party in your eyes, or is it like it's too far gone?
I want to say yes, but and that hope, trying to keep that hope alive was one of the reasons why I stayed in the Democratic Party for as long as I did, even as I was very critical of their policies and decisions, even as I was running for president. And I talked on the Democratic debate stage about how one of the reasons why I was running was that I wanted to provide the leadership to bring the Democratic Party back to its roots of being the party of the people, a party that celebrated civil liberties, a party that was a big open tent that welcomed people who brought different perspectives and different experiences. And I was booed on the Democratic debate stage for having the audacity to say these things. And as time went on, it just got to a point where I felt I had done that all that I could. And the reason why I titled my book in the very direct way that I did is because under the leadership of the Democrat elite in power, both those who hold office and those who don't, I don't see any interest whatsoever in bringing that party back to what any political party should stand for, which is serving the best interests of the American people and upholding the Constitution. And that's, again, where this election, I'm not a candidate, I'm not running for office, I'm not, stumping for votes. I'm literally traveling across the country and will spend all of my energy between now and Election Day on November 5th trying to open people's eyes about the truth in the decision that we all as Americans have to face, and also where we find hope as the American people, because I'm sure you hear it too. There are so many in this country who feel politically homeless, who feel that all hope is lost to bring any rationality to our dialogue and conversations as a whole, who feel as though the decisions that are being made are benefiting, the ultra elite and leaving the rest of us behind, regardless of our political party. Where do we find hope? How do we find a way forward? I closed the book talking about exactly this. And it was what I experienced when I ran for president in 2020, where every one of my town halls that I held, I had Democrats, Republicans, independents, and libertarians all gathered in the same spaces in rural communities in Iowa. I held town halls that were standing room only in New York City and San Francisco and Los Angeles, gathering Americans from all different backgrounds, different political thoughts and ideas and values, gathering together because they care very much about our country. And ultimately they care about each other and want to build that more perfect union, that brighter future for everybody, not just half the country. And so that's where I am inspired and find hope for our future, where change is possible, but only if we, the people, harness our power and make that change happen.
That's right. Yeah, it's that unity that everybody's pining for. It's the civil discourse they're pining for. It's the humanity piece they're
Yes.
missing, right? And I think that's why so many people, at least in our circles, are fans of people like yourself, because you bring that humanity to the conversation too. And I know there's a personal cost. I mean, you talk about being booed from the public, on the public stage from that kind of, and that's crazy. And then there's an element of that being the public Tulsi that gets booed on there. But there is when you have the voice that you have, there's a personal toll that's got to take on that, like that's got to be taken on you too, right? Like, I know you've got to take slack for being outspoken in this arena. I remember I did an event with Dave Rubin a few years back, and we had a great conversation before the event, and we were going to eat and hanging out, but he really started diving into how much personal slack he was taking off the record for being so vocal about leaving the Democratic Party, and some of the backlash, some of the stories. I'm like, this is nuts, man. So you've got to take some of that too. How do you balance that from a personal standpoint, so you don't take it personally, so you can stay on mission and stay showing up as the human that you are? How do you deal with that on the personal side?
My screen is changing. Does that matter to you here?
It doesn't matter.
I'm seeing a whiteboard.
Yeah, it looks like we got
Okay.
Wags. It looks like your whiteboard
Right.
is being shared, Wags. So if we can make sure that gets taken
Okay.
down.
All right. I'll continue. Just making sure we're good.
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, the personal attacks are very real. I think the ones, and it comes with the territory where over time I think I realized, again, this is a years long experience that continues to this day, is that when the attacks start coming, it's generally because you're shaking the right tree. And you're making what Congressman John Lewis call, civil rights icon, what he called making good trouble. And I realized very early on that those lashing out are attacking because they are insecure, they are weak, they're afraid, and they feel threatened, either directly or their power is threatened by the truth or someone who dares to challenge their position. And so for me, I've not really ever taken those attacks personally, even when they've come from people who I used to call friends. It's more of a reflection on them than it is on me. And secondly, I didn't ever run for office because I had some desire to be loved and be popular. I ran for office, whether it was the state house in Hawaii or the Honolulu City Council or Congress or eventually president, to be of service and to be of service to God and be of service to my fellow Americans, and to do my very best to try to make that positive impact and positive change for our country. And so my daily spiritual prayer and practice and meditation is rooted in asking God, please allow me to be pleasing to you. Please give me the clarity to be able to see the truth, the strength to speak the truth, and to remain focused and dedicated in that personal mission of mine, which is my purpose. And so, if the only person I care about pleasing is God, and it is, then it makes it easy to smile in the face of those who are launching venomous attacks, because I don't live for their pleasure.
That's right. Oh, so good. So appreciate that. And that's definitely the sentiment of the group that's here with us too, man. So appreciate that. I also so appreciate, and folks, I'm going to start pulling you guys in with your questions here in just a moment, because I know you guys have some great questions to ask as well. But I also, I so appreciate your stance that you've also been taking on the how business is being
I
politicized.
hate that word, by the way.
So do
I say
I.
it wrong all the time.
So do
There's too
I.
many things going on in there.
Politicization. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's like I will put 14 extra syllables in there for absolutely no
Exactly.
reason
I know.
every
Me
single
too.
time. But people politicizing business. It's like, well, is
Yeah.
this a woke business? Is it some a MAGA business? Is this like I can't stand this. And we've got some of the
Yeah.
people, the amazing humans that are on this call with us. Many of them are launching Apogee campuses around the world, launching one in Hawaii too this coming fall, and I'm really excited about that. But we got
Awesome.
50 that are launching this coming fall. And one of the things that we've done is we've created Apogee payment systems, partially because we can build out a scholarship program for each campus by going through that. And companies can use Apogee Pays like they would a Stripe or a PayPal, and it goes into a foundation that builds out these scholarship programs. But being completely honest, part of the reason that we created that was also because Stripe came after us because they didn't like what we were doing supporting the families. They didn't like that we had specific programs that focused on men and specific programs that focused on women. And so they not only refunded a six-figure amount to one of our events, they also held six figures in money for quite some time just because they didn't like this. We wanted to avoid that. We wanted to avoid other organizations having that. I appreciate you speaking out on the fact that shouldn't even be a conversation in business.
Exactly.
Right? Like
Exactly.
it's just good service,
yeah, I mean,
product, good people.
Exactly. And that's really what it comes down to. We can have and should have dialogue and debate and conversations around the issues of the day or the challenges of the day. Obviously, people who hold political office, they should be having these dialogues, and too often they are not. They're only interested in canceling or silencing or smearing others who disagree with them. But when it comes to business, and I grew up working in my family's small business. My parents were teachers by trade and training, but they're entrepreneurs at heart. And even when they moved to American Samoa after they finished college, which is where my dad was from, my dad was the assistant dean of the community college there. My mom was a special ed teacher, a speech therapist. They opened a little shop called Mike's Sports Shop, I think it was called, because they both love to play tennis. Awesome. And they saw an opportunity to share their passion with the community there. And so growing up, there have been different small businesses that they've had. For us, it was a small family deli. Growing up, I was wiping tables and sweeping floors when I was 8, 9, 10 years old. I got paid $6 every 2 weeks, and my parents said, "Okay, you got to think about how you're going to budget that money and what you're going to put in savings, what you're going to give in a tithe, and what you're going to spend on candy or whatever." And so I just have an appreciation. Obviously, we see this a lot happening with big businesses getting involved with politics and leveraging their power to punish those who are not going along with whatever the mainstream accepted position is of the day. But obviously, it affects a lot of small businesses like you guys, and I'm so happy to hear that you are forging that independent path so that people don't have to deal with these decisions. I saw this morning, the latest GoFundMe was trending on X, and I was like, I wonder what that's about. Yeah. All these people saying, well, we're going to boycott GoFundMe because there's a GoFundMe account to help fund the lawsuits against President Trump. It's ridiculous, and businesses should focus on providing good service.
So silly, man. It's yeah, that's exactly it. And it's and Tim and I have this conversation ad nauseum. We're talking about creating this, these private initiatives and these private endeavors and creating these parallel, the parallel economies and these parallel systems. Yeah. And look, we want to be able to do that because we want people to be able to go towards freedom and sovereignty. And we want to have this here, but we still think there's an effective place for good men and women in politics today too, right? Can it be a yes and?
Yes, it needs to be a yes and that's where I think there's opportunity for growth on all sides of the political spectrum, and frankly in our society as a whole, as we're talking about business and politics. And and frankly, the educational institutions and others, is rather than shutting people out who don't agree with you, welcome people in and have the conversation. As I have found over years, as people have come at me ready to attack because of a position that I hold, or a position that they thought was mine but actually wasn't, when we actually just sit down and talk, I can't think of a single time, frankly, that both of us haven't walked away finding at least one area of shared belief or values or understanding, and both actually appreciating that dialogue and conversation. And I've experienced this, of course, I've gotten a lot of hate from powerful people in the Democratic Party. I've gotten a lot of hate from people in the Republican Party at different times. People who's call Democrats demon rats, or the libtards, or whatever the name of the day happens to be. How is change possible when Hillary Clinton calls half the country deplorables, or when the other half called Democrats rank and file people who are working hard every day and who are just as frustrated as I have been with the direction the Democratic Party has taken? How do you make them feel when you call them a demon rat? Do they really feel welcome to say, hey, maybe there's another place for me politically, or maybe there's another path forward that's outside of the Democratic Party? Unless we are willing to be open, all of us, and have these real dialogue and conversation. And even if we end up disagreeing, be like, cool, man, agree to disagree. I respect you as an American. Have a great day. That's where change has to happen.
Bingo. Absolutely. Otherwise, we're immediately taking it into the elementary schoolyard and shutting down any real discourse before it takes place. And I agree. I think that's really the experience of anybody who has cared to push that experience, is that we will find so many more things to come together around than separates us. I mean, that's always the case.
It doesn't mean, though, Matt, and I want to be clear, it doesn't mean that we just roll over,
of course,
and allow people to walk all over. This isn't some fake like kumbaya crap or anything. Take a strong stand for the things that matter most, but don't make the mistake of throwing out in the trash an entire group of people because of some label they may have, or some association they may have. We're all individuals. We encourage critical thinking and independent thought in this country, rather than the blind followership in politics we've seen for too long.
Bingo. Beautifully said. Beautifully said. All right, let's get some of these amazing humans in here. Mikey T, my fellow North Carolinian, let's get you in here, sir.
Absolutely. Ms. Gabbard, thank you so much for your service to our country and just taking the time today. So, and I think you're touching on my question. So how do we put the American spirit back into America? How do we make all Americans have American pride again? And what is the government's role in that?
That's a big question, and an important one. I guess the first place I would start is that we individually have to live those values. Of what are those values? They are the values fundamentally of freedom. First of all, the values of recognizing that we don't have to, but we should treat each other with respect at a spiritual level, because no matter how different we may be in belief or background or experience, we're all children of God. So at a fundamental level, we should treat each other with respect in that way, and also treat each other with respect as fellow Americans. And I think living those values in our individual lives, whether it be online or in person, in our businesses, in our relationships, and our friendships, is the way that we as a people start to make that change. As a government, we can get into a whole slew of issues there, but I think, again, fundamentally, it is we, the people, electing people into government who are truly committed to the Constitution, who are committed to respecting individual liberty and freedom, and therefore limited government, getting rid of those who now especially overtly are abusing their power abusing the Justice Department, abusing and undermining the rule of law. And I go into this in a lot of detail and examples in my book, how everything from the IRS to the Department of Education to, housing and urban development, you can look at almost to the Department of Defense, Department of Justice, the FBI, how many of these supposedly public institutions are being politicized and weaponized to serve the interests of those in power. And it is the Democrat elite in power right now who are predominantly guilty of this. But when it comes to certain areas, there is the uniparty in Washington who are trying to protect their power. So I guess the bottom line is we have to do our part. No change will happen unless we are reminded of what was written in the Declaration of Independence and in the Bill of Rights and the Constitution, that our government exists with the consent of the governed. So if we're not happy with it, we're the only ones who can actually fix and change that.
Thank you so much.
Yeah,
thank you.
We got Mr. Harris out there in Michigan. Fantastic, sir. Good to see you.
Thank you, sir. Tulsi, thank you so much for your time, and thank you for everything. I won't take up time, but thank you for everything. I've been an admirer of you for a very long time. Thank you for all of your service.
Thank you.
With listening to you talk today, and this is a recurring theme from other interviews I've seen with you, where it just seems like you've got a tremendous amount of hope. So if you could talk a little bit about your source of that. Obviously, you're a woman of faith. You believe in the Constitution and the American spirit, but I mean, could you unpack that a little bit as far as where your resilience and hope comes from? Because when a lot of us, including myself, look at the government, there's not a whole lot of reasons to be hopeful other than intangible things. So,
yeah. Thank you. Thank you for your kind words and this most important, it really truly is the most important question. And as long as God exists and God's love is there for every one of us, there is hope. God is eternal. So we should never feel hopeless knowing that God loves us. Period.
Sure.
With our government, this constitutional republic and our democracy, as imperfect as it is still the best form of governance that exists on the planet. There are very serious issues with our election system and the integrity of our election systems and the corruption within our own government. This is not being naive or blind to those things. But our founders were genius in creating this system of governance that allows us as the people in this country, as voters in this country, to bring about those necessary reforms and changes. That's why I haven't thrown in the towel and, shut myself off from the world and taken my surfboard and paddled out in Hawaii. Even after seeing through and living through and experiencing directly the toxic underbelly, the darkest places in our politics in this country, my hope lies within the hearts of the American people, who themselves may not feel hopeful for a lot of the reasons that you're talking about, but who I know love our country and want a better and brighter future for everyone. And, when we wake up collectively to remember that the power of the people, there are way more of us than those who exist within the power elite and the establishment in Washington. And yes, they have a lot of money, they have a lot of power, they have a lot of influence and a lot of really powerful tools at their fingertips that they are using as we speak to try to keep us asleep to the abuse of their power. But if enough of us wake up and do something about it, then we can absolutely transform our country, starting with the county councils and supervisors and boards of education and chiefs of police, all the way up through every single part of our government, and also your business leaders, your entrepreneurs, your educators, people who are doing what you all are doing right now in transforming what does it mean to be educated in our society today. So this is, there's nobody who gets to sit on the couch and be like, yo, somebody else has got this. I'm just going to relax and wait for things to get better. We all have a role to play and a responsibility.
Thank you for that.
Beautiful.
Thank you.
Oh, we got a Hawaiian connection over here. Mr. Dan Cardozo.
Oh, hey, thank you. Thank you, Tulsi. Thank you for your service, of course. I think can't remember. It must have been like in 2012. You stole our vote from, not stole, you took our vote from a from Mufi Hanneman, who we love, but you're our generation, and we've been following you since.
I'm grateful. Thank you.
Yeah. Would you say it's more difficult now to avoid a sacrifice of your values, let's say in a prominent political position, more difficult now to not do a type of quid pro quo sacrificing the values of when you started while in office?
That's a good question. I don't think, go ahead. Yeah.
No, I think earlier, let's say like Clinton Bush era, we didn't know so much, the general population maybe didn't know so much about the industrial war complex and things of that nature. Like we didn't know, but now we can. And it seems like everybody starts off well, and then too long they get compromised.
It's easy. It's very easy for people to get compromised. And I'll just share a brief story about how quickly things change when even well-intentioned people go to Washington. Every member of Congress that's first elected, you go there a few weeks early and you go through what they call a freshman orientation. And, you learn about the process and the ethics briefs, and you kind of start to meet people and network around. And I remember there was a reception that Congressman Steny Hoyer hosted for all of the freshman Democrats when I was elected in 2012. And I didn't, it was like, hey, everybody go show up here at this time and place. I didn't realize that it was going to be a reception for all the lobbyists in Washington. And so when I got there, I was like looking around and kind of seeing, okay, who's here? What's going on? I went and stood in line to go get a soda or something from the drink stand that was there. And I started talking to the guy who was in front of me, and he's like, oh, hi, who are you? What's your name? I was like, I'm Tulsi Gabbard. I just got elected from Hawaii. And he's like, what are you doing standing in line? Like, I'm the same reason you're in line. I'm standing in line to get a drink. He's like, you don't understand, ma'am. You will never have to stand in a line in this town ever again. And that was the first kind of like blinker light or warning sign that I got of like, okay, so because I was just hired to do this job for my community and my constituents in Hawaii, now you guys are putting me up on a pedestal for some reason. And there's so many other examples I can put in that, but there are some people who thrive on that. They relish that. And that becomes their identity, that title that's on their door, rather than the purpose that drove them to do this in the first place. And people get very lost. And I think the direction of your question is, it was a lot, there's far more information that's available now to voters than there maybe was before. Whether the Bush years or the Clinton years, or, frankly, even when President Obama was president, there's so many, there are fewer people who are bought into cable news, and many more people who are looking for new media and alternative sources of news, whether it's podcasts or things that, there is an inexplicable number of people who, adults, not kids, actual adults who get their news off of TikTok. And so these are realities that we are facing, where whether it's Instagram stories or TikTok, I just met a guy in Iowa who's like, oh, I get all my stuff on YouTube Shorts, and I love your videos you put on YouTube Shorts. Information is so much more available. So I'd say, yes, it is becoming harder for those in power to say one thing and do another. But their propaganda warfare is real. It's absolutely real. One example, you saw how for the first 3 years in the Biden administration, you had Secretary Mayorkas and Kamala Harris and Joe Biden and everybody else saying, our borders are secure. There's nothing to see here, folks. The borders are secure. The borders are secure. Meanwhile, we have footage from some mainstream media and other people just going to the border, posting videos on social media with thousands of people pouring across the border. All of a sudden, it's an election year. And now Joe Biden and the Democrats are saying, well, we're going to fix the border if the Republicans would only let us do it. And they're saying that. The mainstream MSNBC repeats that. Every Democrat in Congress that I'm aware of repeats the propaganda line, because they know if you repeat these lies more, enough times, then at some point they hope it will penetrate. People be like, oh yeah, the Democrats are the ones defending the border and the Republicans are getting in the way of it. And so, it's one example of many of the power of information and why all of us have to be very careful in the information that we consume, and don't take anything for face value.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Aloha.
Well,
oh, we're getting some love from Connecticut too, with a freshly shaved face, Mr. Penelo.
Hey, that's a third person, by the way, who has commented on my clean face. So thank you for that. I look 10 years younger. Thank you.
There's a reason people are commenting on it, sir, for sure. I wouldn't look like a 75-year-old if I got rid of this either. So we're good.
Yeah. Well, Ms. Tulsi, thank you so much for being here. I've been a big fan ever since your iconic debate moment. I'm sure we all know the one that you're talking about, that person who can be unburdened by what has been, or however it goes. I think you're probably the perfect person to ask this. So just to set the stage, I was actually an elected official as a Republican for about 4 years. And now, ironically, I'm working for the newly elected Democratic mayor in Hartford, Connecticut, where I head up economic development for the city. So obviously the climate that we're in, I haven't exactly gotten the warmest of welcomes. My question to you is, how do you think that we can avoid national narratives at the local level? Because it seems that, a lot of these things, while maybe important, whether it be the Israel conflict, they just wrote a resolution supporting Israel, and then they wrote another one supporting Palestine. There's real issues with poverty, like right now, and it's very hard to get people all on the same page when we're still focused on national things that really don't affect the local level. So that's really my question at this point.
That's a really, you said you're the head of business development for the city?
Economic development, yeah.
Economic development. I think you're in a great position to provide lead by example. There is nothing more real than small businesses who are struggling in our communities across the country. And you are uniquely positioned to keep things real, keep things local, and focused on who really matters most. It's one of the things that I loved most during my time serving on the Honolulu City Council. I was chair of the Economic Development Committee on the City Council at that time, as well as the Public Safety Committee. Those things, if things are going bad, you're going to hear about it. There are very real challenges, nuts and bolts, where the rubber meets the road, things that either have to be fixed or resolved, as well as opportunities that should be made available and grown and exploited. And this little silly or funny, but one of the things that I was really proud to help fix in our community was an archaic lunch trucks parked on the side of the road. It's rush hour during lunch, and they're feeding all of downtown Honolulu, which was my district at the time. A police officer got it in his head that he didn't really like it. And so he dug up a law that was passed in the 1940s or 50s, when you had guys pulling up on the side of the road selling T-shirts and kind of doing what you see a lot of in New York City. You got they throw it out there, try to sell as much as they can, and then run away before the cops come. So they passed a law that said you couldn't park, no vehicle could park in a place for longer than 20 minutes, I think it was, if you are selling something. And so these lunch trucks, they like, well, we need to park here for 2 hours during lunch rush, but this cop is coming and giving us tickets. And so long story short, we fixed it. We changed the law. Everybody was happy because they could go and eat lunch, and these lunch trucks could still do their business. But that can't be a partisan thing. That can't be. And so as I know exactly what you're talking about, because I've experienced how national politics has become very hyper localized. But there's opportunity there for people like yourself to be in a position of leadership, to not allow your work and your team to be influenced or tainted by it, and you will show your success through your work. And I think that other people who see that and see how well you and your team are supporting your community will, if they're not inspired by your example, they'll start to hear from voters. We're like, hey, why are you guys focused on what's happening at the other side of the world when you're not filling my potholes? Like things don't get more real than they do at the local level.
Oh, believe me, I know. I think I've already found a few grays. And it's not. And thank you for that example, because it's nice to know that doesn't matter what city you're at anywhere in the world, like pettiness does not stop at a border. Because I feel like that truck conversations like Groundhog Day. So thank you very much for your time.
Thank you.
Good question, Pat. We've got a fellow Army, absolute amazing human over here, and Mr. Wellens. How are you, sir?
Navy man, but I'll forgive you.
Oh, you know what? Never mind. Sorry, we're going to go to the next. We're going to go to Martin.
That's the right answer, Matt.
You're right. You're right. So sorry about that. We're going to Martin now. Jeremy, you're breaking up. I have to drop you. I don't know what's going
on. Hey, Tulsi, great having you on. And I had two quick questions. Depending on the first one, I'll hold the second one if this one takes a little bit. But with your distinguished service as a representative and DNC vice chair, and then your continued involvement, with politics and being on Fox News and very public outspeaking. And I ask this because I do have a couple friends that are kind of in a similar thing, in the reserves or serving in some capacity while also trying to get involved in politics or some sort of elected position. I talk to Tim about this all the time while he was in the National Guard and trying to juggle that. So do you find that there's conflict with the constraints and or restraints of being in uniform service in relation to what you're doing? Do you often have like leadership coming down and trying to stop you or stifle your progress on the political side, or saying, hey, you can't say that? I mean, obviously I'm assuming you've won that over because you're still, speaking. But what are the challenges?
So far, my friend, so far, I'm knocking on wood here. Thanks for the question. For me, I have never felt like I was in any position of conflict. Because there has always been a brick wall between when I'm in uniform, I'm in uniform. When I'm not in uniform, I'm a civilian. And whether I'm holding public office or not, as currently, I have the same First Amendment rights as everyone else in this country. There are very clear rules when I'm in uniform of things that I can do and things that I can't do. And I follow those rules and have now. April is my 21-year anniversary of being in the Army, and have appreciated every bit of it. There are others who don't agree, and there was an effort shortly after I got into Congress, and not because of me. This effort had happened prior to my getting there, but when I got there, there was a good handful of us, maybe 15 or 20 members of Congress, who were either in the National Guard or the Reserve for across the Navy, Air Force, and Army. And there, I was told that the effort originated with staffers from the Office of the Secretary of Defense who didn't like that there were members of Congress, some of us who served on the Armed Services Committee, who dual-hatted, who were citizen soldiers in my case. And so they launched an effort claiming that it will, again, anonymous people behind the curtain working through other members of Congress and professional staffers on the committee to try to pass an amendment to the National Defense Authorization Act, making it impossible for members of Congress to serve in the National Guard or the Reserve. And their claim was that it's unconstitutional, without providing any constitutional argument for their position. Ultimately, in my experience, what it came down to is those of us who have worn the uniform, who wear the uniform, we have a very different perspective, or a more informed perspective, I should say, about the consequences of the decisions made by those in the big building in Washington, D.C. Because, and I was enlisted for 4 years, went through OCS, earned my commission, was a platoon leader, company commander, currently battalion commander. I've experienced at every level, what the downstream effects are of these decisions and policies, both made by members of Congress as well as leaders in the Pentagon. And so, when I had the Secretary of Defense sitting before the Armed Services Committee, I asked very different questions of him than other members of Congress. I don't think that they like that very much. I've experienced some of that both in the National Guard and now in the U.S. Army Reserve on a negative side, where people either who don't like my politics or who don't like someone who is a very public-facing person try to stifle opportunities for me to serve my country. I have also seen leaders who saw my experience of serving in government and the knowledge that I have of the process and the experiences I've had as a value add and as an asset to their command or to the things that they are trying to get done, and who've utilized that. Ultimately, whatever the situation is, unless something is happening unethically or illegally when I'm in uniform, as much as it might suck to be on the receiving end of decisions by those who are above my military pay grade, salute the flag, and I will do my very best to complete the mission that I am given. And as a civilian, continue to make the best informed decisions possible that come from not only my own experience, but from the experiences and feedback that I get from those I serve with.
Beautifully said.
I very much appreciate that answer. And as I transition from active duty and now still serving the reserves and trying to figure out that balance of and following suit with you and Tim and how I can get more involved, but also, again, understanding those clear lines. And a lot of my peers at the Marine Corps command I'm attached to now who are running for mayor or different positions are finding that same challenge and, adhering to Title 10, but then serving the people the best they can outside of uniform. So thank you so much, Tulsi. And
I'm happy to, as you navigate through this process, feel free to reach out, and I'm happy to answer any questions that you have, because I've probably been through everything at this point. So I'd love to help prevent you from any unforced errors.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
Great question, Jeremy, especially from an Army/Navy guy. So, and guys, so I know we got about 10 minutes left. We're going to make sure we honor time, so we'll get through as many questions as we can.
I'll try to be quick too. Sorry.
No, you're great. You're great. No, I want you to just be you, and we will we'll continue. And here's
we can probably go till 12. Well, let's see, 12:15 East Coast time. So a little bit longer.
Awesome. Grateful. And again, we want to make sure we just honor your time. So whatever works for you, say the word 100%. And we actually do love Canadians as well too. So Martin, one of our favorites for sure.
Canadians are nice.
Canadians are great. Dang right. How are you, sir? Uh-oh. There we go.
Hello, Ms. Gabbard. Thank you for coming on today. Though I'm not an American, I'd like to take the opportunity to thank you for your service. I think fighting the good fight transcends national borders and
Yes.
service to humanity. So thank you for that. And Mr. Trabelski, I think already had my question answered. So I just want to take the opportunity to say, when the ship gets righted in America, please feel free to invade Canada.
That's fair.
Thank you.
That's all I wanted to say. Thank you.
That's awesome. Good for you, Martin.
Appreciate it, Martin. Thank you.
That's awesome. All right, let's get the Jordan crew over here. I love it, Martin.
Yes, Miss Tulsi, it is an honor. I will be respectful of your time and get directly to my question. In your opinion, what would you say are the 2 or 3 biggest issues in our society or in our country, and how do they impact education? How do you see them impacting education? Because that's the space that we're in, launching these Apogee campuses. Thank you.
Thank you. I'll start with the specific to education, the influence of big money and the big unions in our policymakers' decisions. You know, and again, I've been through a lot personally, but also politically, to be able to educate myself better than I was before, and also to experience firsthand how broken our system is. And so, you know, I'll speak specifically to education in the interest of time, but these things I think apply across the board in what is problematic with our country. Number one, money. You see the big industries who have an inordinate amount of influence because of the money that they're able to give, both through their lobbyists and the big political machinery that occurs, and it happens both directly and indirectly. Unfortunately, when we have politicians who care more for money and power than they do for doing their job and the people, we end up in the situation that we are in, where the problems that we see and we experience never actually end up getting solved. When you look at the power of unions, you know, I've been endorsed by unions in some of my political campaigns, and I have seen how some of them are good. I think unions are not inherently bad. The origin of unions that I experienced in Hawaii were organizations that stood up against some of the most powerful, most moneyed interests in our states and fought for the rights of just basic humane working conditions for plantation workers in Hawaii. That was one of the things that drove me to join the Democratic Party. However, I have also seen how over the years, many of the biggest unions in our states and in the country have essentially become political arms of the Democratic Party, and a Democratic Party that is not motivated by a desire to fight for working people in this country anymore. And so that's why we are seeing, for example, some of the biggest teachers unions saying, well, parents don't have a right to have a say in their child's education and curriculum. You have, I think she was president of the Chicago Teachers Union chapter, being confronted on CNN of all places about why she sends her child to private school, but is depriving parents with the right of school choice and deciding what kind of education or what school they want their child to go through. And she didn't see the hypocrisy in that, even in this conversation on live television on CNN. The Randy Weingarten said that the biggest threat to democracy is school choice. They talk about Joe Biden he talks about himself as the most union-friendly president in history, which to me, I would rather have a president that is most friendly towards fighting for the people rather than these organizations that have become very self-serving. There are a lot of politicians, I can tell you, who would be far more open to very real reforms in our education system, if not for the muscle of the teachers union, which is very, 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 very powerful. And then when it comes down to the policies that are made at the local level, and this is why everywhere I go, I talk about how important it is. And I think a lot of parents are waking up to this over these last few years, how impactful the local boards of education are. Getting involved and actually putting yourself in a position to have a say, it has an impact that's difficult to measure. The first person in my family that ran for public office was my mom, and she ran for Board of Education in 2000. My dad's involved with politics now. He's a state senator, but my mom was the first one to put herself out there running for a statewide seat on the Board of Education. It was a statewide race, which usually only exists for governors and U.S. senators, but it was a statewide race, and it was not something that she wanted to do or came naturally to her. It was quite challenging, but she did it as a mom and as a teacher and as someone who homeschooled all 5 of her kids, because she saw the red flags even back then in 2000 that we are seeing bearing fruit today, about a very specific agenda and narrative being pushed through our schools to indoctrinate kids rather than focusing on reading and writing and math and science, and leaving the values and the raising of children to parents. I don't know if that answers your question, but those are the 3 things to me that are essential to begin to start to solve some of the problems and eliminate the obstacles that we face towards change.
Awesome. You did answer my question, and I wish we had time for more questions, but thank you for your time today.
Awesome.
Thank you.
Question, Tim. And from one Tim to another, we got Dr. Tim Yee. How are you, sir?
Well, I'm waiting to see when Tulsi can invade California. Could you put that on your agenda?
I know you are. I know you are.
There's a gentleman named Gavin Newsom who needs to be put in a headlock as soon as possible. So,
can I just say, Gavin, people talk about him, he's obviously got aspirations. He will run for president, whether it's, now or later. Those of you who live in California, I hope you guys really use megaphones to remind the country of what kind of governance he has had and the impact it's had on your state. Because I've talked to people, this guy who's a very prominent business owner, he's prominent on social media. He went to a Gavin Newsom event, I think like a year ago, and he's like, hey, Gavin Newsom is such a great guy and he's so charismatic and he loves small businesses and all this stuff. I'm like, oh my gosh. Anyway, he's very convincing. He's very good at what he does. So, yes.
Well, I was just
be careful.
A conversation at a Republic. It was a Republican event, but I was having a conversation with someone about that, saying if they wanted any help developing a viral campaign of what Gavin has done to not just our state, but to every single city, I'd be more than happy to help them prepare for that, because this person was telling me that they already know he is going to run. He will be president. He will be the Democratic candidate. And so I said, well, I hope you guys have already started planning the ads, and they hadn't yet. So I'm more than happy to be a part of that. Tulsi, thank you. I've been a pastor for 27 years in that evangelical, conservative Christian base. I'm now doing executive coaching in partnership with Apogee, and excited about that moving forward. Interesting enough, in my conservative Christian world, there is interest in Tulsi Gabbard and you running again one day, etc. And I've always tried to do people justice, because in Apogee we have a lot of diverse spiritual views, but we have some common values. And so when some people might assume you're in that conservative evangelical world, I've always tried to say, well, I don't think she is, but I think she is super supportive of a lot of our belief systems. So I just want to represent you correctly. Am I saying that correctly, that though you wouldn't be in this conservative evangelical camp, that you would stand for a lot of the same kind of values? I mean, even things like 2 genders, male and female, things, obviously importance of family, freedom of expressing our faith, but even a leaning towards, having satanic temples within our government institutions isn't a wise thing. So that gets in that evangelical world a bit, which can be exclusive. So I just want to represent you correctly to a lot of the people I'm still in contact with, and just knowing there's a lot of that group that would love to support you, even if you have some different views. So share a little bit more of what you'd like me to share with them when I'm speaking to these leaders in the months ahead.
Yeah. That's a big open-ended question. I will say very simply, I agree with everything that you just said about the importance of family, the importance of empowering parents to raise their children with their values, the importance of us as a society. And I go into this in depth. I've got a whole chapter dedicated to this topic in my book, specifically speaking to religious freedom, and how that is something that many people don't have in America today, especially evangelical Christians who are being directly targeted by the Biden-Harris administration, whether it's for expressing your faith or for engaging in peaceful pro-life protests, or other examples of that we saw very clearly occurring during COVID, where people gathering in an auditorium appropriately spaced according to the rules they were told were not allowed to occur, but having parties in that same space were very much allowed and encouraged. And we saw a lot of pastors who were persecuted simply for gathering people of faith together to worship. This religious freedom is misused and misdirected and oftentimes abused in the interest of those who are trying to remove any mention of God and spirituality and faith from all parts of our public life. And we're seeing how those actions are undermining the moral fabric of our country. I believe very much in religious freedom and the Constitution, which says each of us has the opportunity to express our faith, to love God, to express that love however we may choose. And also, the people have the freedom to not believe in God, to choose not to love God and live their lives in the way that they choose. That is the foundation on which our country was founded, and that's where we need to get back to.
Thank you very much. Let me know when the California invasion is happening, and we will roll out the red carpet. Thank you.
Thanks.
I know you will, Doc. I have no doubt about it. It's awesome. Coach Witt, how are you, young lady?
Hi. So on a personal level, I know we all have this role and, to find our voices. And what I want to know from you is what has built your confidence to speak with such conviction about your beliefs?
My confidence comes from my purpose and my faith. Period. People don't ever believe me when I say this, but you ask anyone in my family and they will attest to the truth that as a kid growing up, I was the most introverted, shy kid around. I did martial arts, I surfed, and I hung out with my friends, but other than that, I was not interested in talking to anybody. My younger sister, Nat, who you will talk to and meet at some point very soon, again, she's an extrovert. She's the exact opposite. We have very, very different personalities. And so I used to make her go and talk to people for me. She was my spokesperson as a kid. And so the thought of running for office or speaking in public or putting myself in front of people in any way, shape, or form as a kid growing up, even as a teenager and a young adult, was terrifying to me, absolutely terrifying. But the reason why at 21 years old, I decided to run for state house in Hawaii was out of a recognition of a need for change and leadership in my home state, and looking in the mirror and saying, well, what am I doing? What action am I taking to be the solution, to be of service? I can sit here and talk about it. I can get signatures on a petition, but when it comes right down to it, what am I actually doing? And is there more that I can do? And ultimately the answer to that was, yes, there is more that you can do. And so, I began the tough process by myself. I had no institutional support or party support. There was no big money people saying, Tulsi, we need you to run for office. It was just me in my little two-door Geo Metro driving house to house with my black and white Xerox flyers, summoning up the courage and a whole lot of prayer to go and knock on a door of a total stranger and to introduce myself and tell them why I was running for state house and asking for their vote. And then being so relieved every time it went well, but then being terrified before going to the next door. The thing that changed many years of anxiety, even after being elected into office, of being anxious every time I had to go into a room full of strangers, whatever the setting might be, it got to a point where it was miserable. And I was the cause of my misery and my anxiety. And I had to confront myself with that fact and ask myself some really deep questions about, like, what are you so afraid of? Where is this anxiety coming from? And I realized that all of my anxiety and fear was coming from a very, very selfish place of, you know, what if I don't know what to say? What if I make a fool of myself? What if they think certain things about me, or they say mean things to me, or whatever the case may be? Ultimately, as I was doing my best to pursue a path of service to others, one of my biggest obstacles was coming from this very selfish place. And so my whole mindset changed to the point where, whether I was, you know, walking down a parade route and in a Christmas parade and shaking people's hands as their families are sitting there, that was terrifying to me before. But instead of thinking about myself, I saw, let me show this person my love, my aloha, and my respect, even if our interaction only lasts for 1 second. I'm going to smile and share my heart with them. If I'm giving a speech in front of 20,000 people, I'm going to go and give that speech and share my heart and look into people's eyes. And maybe I'll be the only person that shows that love and respect to them today. But it might inspire them to do that for someone else. And when I changed my mindset away from all that was going on inside my mind, and instead focused my energy on that, in Hawaii, what we call aloha, that love and that compassion, respect, and empathy towards others, everything changed. Absolutely everything changed. And I'm grateful. I'm grateful to have been given that insight to allow me to better do my best to serve.
So good. What do you think?
Thank you.
Solid. Yeah, we had a young lady, and just quick aside, because I know Derek, we're gonna get you in here, but yeah, we had a young lady at one of our campuses in California, and she came to us very much the same, you know, very introverted, and but she had this dream of just getting, all she wanted to do was give one talk from a stage in public. She didn't really care the context of it. She didn't care. She just wanted to get past this fear. So she was, you know, we were trying to work something out, and ultimately within a year, she ended up going from this, you know, introverted young lady, a fascinating young person, to giving a TEDx talk. And so we ended up, it was so great to watch. And so, you know, we had a bunch of parents that came to an exhibition afterwards, and one of the parents asked us, how was such a big transition made over the course of the year? And she said, I just had to stop thinking about me. She said, I was thinking about me the whole time. What are they going to think about me? What do they think about me? Everything was me, me, me. As soon as I just said, how do I love them? Everything changed. And it just started that journch, you know, and that's a reminder. It's just, that's exactly it. It's that perspective. Oh, so beautiful. Derek, so we have got a bunch of Apogee merch that we are going to be sending over to Tulsi as well. And a lot of it is designed by this handsome gentleman right here too.
Amazing.
Yeah, good to see you guys.
Thank you. First off, Tulsi, thank you so much for your service and everything you're doing. Been following you for quite a while. Would absolutely love to see you running for office again. Brett Weinstein was recently on Rogan and talked about worst case scenario in 2024, whether that's Newsom running for president or getting the presidency, or the Democrats maintaining control on what the Democratic Party's become. So from your standpoint, if that happens, what's the contingency plan? What can the average American person do? Because Weinstein had mentioned the American people lining up and kind of coming together to move the needle on that somehow. But aside from the long game and what we're doing with Apogee, what's kind of your plan if that continues to happen and Biden-Harris get reelected, for example?
Yeah, Biden-Harris or fill in the blank. I agree with that assessment that is the worst possible outcome in this election, because we will go from what we have already seen occurring over the last 3 and soon to be 4 years to them, if they are reelected, they being the Democrats, to them standing on their soapbox and saying, see, the American people have given us a mandate to continue doing what we are doing, which will only further unravel our fundamental freedoms and will only further their cause, which is setting the Constitution completely aside and throwing it in the trash and furthering their own objectives and their own advancement of power. So what do we do? What's the contingency plan? This is where the check and balances of government have to come into play. No president, and again, I've talked about this a lot in 2020 when I ran, the most critical role that the president has is commander-in-chief. Every other policy that you hear a candidate talking about can only be enacted through Congress. And so we have the opportunity with the House every 2 years, the Senate every 6 years, to decide who serves in those positions and to hold them accountable, and also to hold them accountable throughout the course of their tenure in office. We have the use of our voices. We have the use of the judicial system. And so, yes, at the federal level, but different states have different means of, some judges are elected, others are appointed. And so we have to focus on every level at really pushing those checks and balances in our system to try to minimize it won't be stopped completely, but to try to minimize the devastation to our country and our freedom and peace, frankly, that will come, whether it's Biden or Harris or anyone else on that ticket.
Well said.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Said. Oh, my friend, all the humanity, the leadership, personality of what we all have, come to know and love. You've shared that with us here today too. So grateful. We want the last part to just be a call to action. We're very grateful for the fact that you spent the time here. We're grateful for the fact this goes out to a very large audience as well. So, for the audience that's here live with us, the audience that, what is that call to action? When can we expect the book? Because I want to make sure that everybody knows when and where to get it. I want to grab a bunch of copies for everybody here as well. So if you're on this call, shoot Fed a message, you guys, let them know you're on this call, and we're going to make sure we grab books for everybody. But that call to action, when can we expect it? And then that final thing is just, how do we continue to support you as an organization? We love you so much and stand by you. How do we support you? So those are the last ones.
Thank you. First of all, I see everybody with their hands up here. I'm so sorry we ran out of time. Maybe just maybe Matt will invite me back again to talk to you guys and we can continue the conversation at a later date. But I am grateful to have been present here with your community. And I really sincerely appreciate so much of what you guys are doing. I know you wouldn't be doing it if you didn't know the impact, the generational impact that you're having. And I look forward to seeing you continuing to expand your efforts. Matt, I still refer people back to the podcast that I did with you and the conversation that we had, and just got incredible feedback from people whose eyes were opened to some new concepts and some new ways of seeing how broken not only the education system is, but the way we think as a society and as a country about education and the raising of children. So, the call to action is just thank you for doing what you're doing, and please keep doing it. You all are examples of courage. Also getting hate, I'm sure, with obstacles being thrown in your way, simply for your act of love for not only your own children, but for others as well. The best possible thing any one of us and all of us can do is to be that example and to be that change, to speak the truth with aloha and not waver in the face of those who are afraid, those who are motivated by hate and selfishness and greed. We have a lot of work to do ahead of us, especially as we head into this election, both like the 50-meter target and the 1,000-meter target. We have a lot of work to do before us, but guided by God's love, the inspiration that we get from God's love, and how we treat each other and what motivates our actions every single day is the best that we can possibly do, and is that path towards transforming our today, as well as the kind of future that our kids will grow up in. My book is called For Love of Country, Leave the Democrat Party Behind. The published date is April 30. It's available on Amazon and through a few other places now. I can send you a link, Matt. It's a book that I hope will cause everyday Americans who aren't living and breathing politics to be better informed and to really think carefully about how they use the power that's in their hands through their voices and through their votes.
Oh, so good. Can't wait for it. Like I said, you guys shoot Fed a message. We'll make sure to get a copy to all of you guys. But my friend, so much love, so much gratitude. Thank you for who you are and how you're continuing to live.
Thank you.
I'm going to take them through I'll take all these folks through a quick debrief on this too, but I'll touch base with you afterwards. And again, we want to send you some things, just a small token, but we are here on your side. Absolutely. We'll continue the conversation, and we are here in full support.
I'm big fans of all of you. Thank you so much. And I look forward to talking to you again soon.
My friend. See you.